This video will cover the basics of making a yeast starter. This will allow you to decrease the yeast cost by increasing the amount of viable yeast cells and also increase the quality of the beer by increasing the attenuation. The basic process is that you will create a mini wort. You will boil malt extract with water, cool it, and pitch your yeast into it. This can either be done in a pot or directly in a flask. As with all aspects of beer brewing, sanitization is key to producing good beer. Step 1 is to determine what yeast you will use and how much you will need. You can use calculators online to determine how large you will need to make your starter and how many yeast cells you will need. Our favorite website to use for this information is brewersfriend.com. They have a yeast pitch rate and starter calculator. Step 2. Combine water and dried malt extract. In this example, I combine them right in the flask to keep things as sanitary as possible. By boiling in the flask, you will sanitize it. Use a rate of 100 grams of dried malt extract for every liter of water. This will result in a gravity of about 1.04. Step 3. Bring wort to a boil. Start adding heat slowly and stir often because the dried malt extract will tend to settle to the bottom of the flask. Once the wort is boiling, boil for about 10 minutes. Step 4. Cool the starters down to yeast pitching temperature. Make sure to check the yeast manufacturer's website for the optimal temperature range for the yeast that you are using. In this example, I used an ice bath to get the wort down in temperature. Step 5. Pitch yeast, aerate, and cover. Be sure to sanitize the outside of the yeast packs, your starter covers, and any tools that come in contact with the wort. Star San is our go-to sanitizer. You can cover the starters with a breathable stopper, or you can simply cover with sanitized aluminum foil. Be sure to allow the starter to breathe. The secret to a yeast starter is aerobic respiration, or keeping oxygen in the starter so the yeast ferments very little and mostly just increases in cell count. Best results can be achieved by using a stir plate. This will keep the yeast in suspension, increase activity, and allow the yeast to be ready in less time. Before we had a stir plate, we would swirl the flask from time to time to introduce oxygen. Around 24 to 48 hours is usually sufficient time for yeast starters to propagate. We usually pitch our starters at around peak activity when the cell count has increased and the yeast is still active. This tends to ensure a healthy fermentation.